There's a moment in life that doesn't look like a breakdown. It looks like nothing at all. No tears, no shouting, no obvious pain, just silence. A kind of silence that hums behind your ribs where your feelings used to live. You wake up one morning and the world looks dull. Not tragic, not awful, just muted. Your coffee tastes the same. Music doesn't land the way it used to. And laughter feels like something you're watching through glass. You tell yourself you're fine because technically you are. You're functioning. You're showing up. You're smiling when you're supposed to. But deep down, somewhere you don't talk about, you know something has gone missing. That's what emotional numbness feels like. It's not the presence of sadness. It's the absence of everything. Psychologists describe emotional numbness as a kind of defense mechanism, a kind of inner shutdown that happens when the system has taken too much. It's what your brain does when it's been wounded too many times, felt too intensely, or carried too much for too long. Like a circuit that overheats and cuts off power, not to punish the system, but to keep it from burning out completely. Yet the cruel twist is that this protection slowly becomes a prison. Because once you disconnect from pain, you also disconnect from joy. The wall you built to stop the storms also blocks the sunlight. Someone once described it perfectly. It's not that I don't want to feel, it's that I forgot how. And that's the quiet tragedy of emotional numbness. It's not losing happiness, it's losing aliveness. If you've ever felt like you're existing more than you're living, hear this. You are not broken. You're in self-preservation mode. The human mind is wired for regulation. It's always trying to keep you safe. When emotions become too overwhelming, too intense, too constant, your brain steps in and quietly turns the volume down. It's not trying to destroy you, it's trying to get you through. But survival mode comes with a cost. Stay in it for too long, and you lose access to the parts of yourself that make life rich: empathy, passion, even love. There's a psychological concept called emotional blunting. It's often tied to chronic stress, trauma, or depression. It doesn't always show on the surface. Sometimes the people who look the calmest, the most put together, are the ones who've shut down the deepest. They've learned that emotions expose them, so they built a fortress. And after living inside it for so long, they confused numbness for peace. But numbness isn't peace. It's quiet pain. Pain that learned how to hide. People who've gone emotionally numb rarely realize it right away. It creeps in slowly. They stop getting excited about the things they used to love. They stop crying when something sad happens, not because they're strong, but because the emotional faucet has rusted shut. They start saying things like, "I don't care anymore." Not out of true apathy, but exhaustion. Beneath that numbness is almost always a story of overextension. Years of emotional labor, heartbreak, disappointment, responsibility. It's the mother who carried everyone else for so long that she forgot her own needs. It's the man who stayed strong for too many years because he was taught never to fall apart. It's the friend who always listens but never speaks. It's the child who grew up in chaos and learned early that feelings lead to pain. Eventually, the body learns a harsh lesson. If feeling equals danger, not feeling equals safety. And it adapts. But adaptation isn't healing, it's endurance. And endurance is not the same as living. Most people who end up emotionally numb didn't choose it. They were pushed into it by repetition. Too many hurts, too too many letdowns, too many moments when caring cost too much. But here's where psychology intersects with hope. The brain isn't fixed. It's flexible, rewritable, capable of change. The same brain that learned to shut down can learn to open again. Emotional numbness isn't a life sentence. It's a pause, a message from your nervous system saying it needs rest before it can feel again. That rest often looks like stillness, not the peaceful kind, more like a slow thaw. It aches, it tingles. It feels like both relief and discomfort at the same time. You start noticing tiny things again. The way morning light falls across your desk. How a song suddenly stirs something faint but real in your chest. Those fragile moments are proof you're coming back to life. But first, you need to face an uncomfortable truth. Emotional numbness isn't the absence of emotion, it's the suppression of it. And everything suppressed eventually surfaces. When you stop running from your feelings, you begin remembering who you were before you became cautious, before you mistook numbness for strength. Because emotional numbness isn't a flaw, it's a scar, evidence of battles fought privately. If you peel it back gently, without judgment, without rushing, you often find extreme sensitivity beneath it. The kind of person who feels everything deeply, but learned to hide it because the world kept telling them, "You're too much." Research even shows that people who feel emotionally numb often score higher in empathy once they reconnect. They're not cold, they're sensitive souls who went into hiding. The paradox is this: the most emotionally numb people were once the ones who felt the deepest. But numbness doesn't fade when life gets better, it fades when safety returns. Because numbness isn't time-based, it's trust-based. You don't wake up one day and suddenly feel again. You rebuild safety moment by moment until your heart finally believes it's allowed to come out. People misunderstand numbness. They think it means someone doesn't care. But the truth is they care so much, they had to stop feeling to survive. Numbness melts in the presence of safety, not pressure. If you're living in that state, listen closely. You're not weak for going numb. You were protecting yourself in the only way you could. But your story doesn't end in emotional silence. The part of you that laughed loudly, cried easily, and loved deeply, it's still there. It's waiting for you to knock. And maybe that knock is nothing dramatic, just a quiet whisper. I miss feeling alive. Numbness doesn't come from chaos. It comes from what happens after the chaos. When the storm ends and the silence feels heavier than the noise. When your body keeps scanning for danger, even though none remains. Modern psychology calls this emotional avoidance. The mind associates feeling with threat, so it disconnects in advance. The result? You seem calm on the outside, but restless on the inside. You laugh at the right moments, nod at the right cues, but it feels more like acting than being alive. And after a while, you start telling yourself, maybe this is just who I am now. But it's not. It's who you became to survive. Numbness often hides years of overstimulation, responsibility, or quiet heartbreak that never found space to be processed. Maybe you were told emotions were dangerous or inconvenient. Maybe your tears made things worse, so you muted what couldn't be explained. We all try to avoid pain. We drown ourselves in work, in screens, in distraction. We say we're busy, but what we often mean is, I don't want to feel right now. But feelings don't disappear. They wait. They build up until numbness is all that's left. But this state, lifeless as it feels, is not the end. It's a transition between who you were and who you're becoming. Healing starts when you begin listening again, softly, slowly. You notice the moments when you want to shut down, when a memory flickers, when a song touches something faint but real. Those fragile moments are proof you're coming back to life. Numbness is healed not by chasing big emotions, but by creating small moments of safety. When the body feels safe again, the emotions return naturally. Therapy, mindfulness, grounding techniques, they don't force feeling,